look all fucked up. I had somebody I was conversing with yesterday want me to do a video for him of me working out. There's your push-up for the day. It's also doing these because I ain't in no place to be able to lift up a 30-pound dumbbell right over my head. I be done knocked myself out and killed myself for real. I look funky as fuck. Whoa, shit. Hold on. Woo, woo. Okay, got it. All right. Woo, that's enough. Ooh, Lord, I got to get me a 25-pound dumbbell so I can graduate to that. So that I can be able to do get... And I already have broad shoulders, which is great, up on body strength. So I'm gonna, I did a couple of reps last night. I wasn't letting it, was spiritually fucking with me, stop my reps. I learned not to do that. With that being said, I saw in the spirit plane, that's some evil ass shit. Make a long story short, it's I'm gonna have to get Reiki done or just really start tapping down on these frequencies. It almost got to the point where my higher selves were just how everything happens in the spirit plane, how they come together and everything, just were like, we're done. With that being said, it's a lot of work. I just, and I got frustrated with my spirit team yesterday with this whole Maria Tavares, Paraffin. I think her name is Maria Blanco, or cause I was told Cassandra Nunez, but I'm not really sure. I'm trying to figure out what the name is. You can use 694 hertz or 695 hertz to see. That's, important to know in the name. When I started saying Maria Blanco, for instance, I know that she started disappearing. Or for the dude here, Montez, from what I understand, it's a bunch of them. Going back to that May the 1st, 2024 timeline, like I said before, something happened because I saw the Grim Reaper in my, his reflection in my cell phone, white mask superimposed on people's faces, Aztec, heard the Aztec death whistle. Saw somebody wearing an Aztec death mask. I even had somebody say, at the First to Serve shelter where I used to stay, right when this, when this all happened, I had a couple of people, say I smelled like burnt flesh, like dead burnt flesh. So something ain't right. I had somebody pass sage smoke past me right underneath, I understand it, coming from the physical plane, I was told. Say, I don't, going back to August 22nd, 2022 timeline, I don't feel like I'm fully in my body. It's so many proofs. My shit's all, I feel like an entity attachment. My shit's all disparate and all of that. Chopped up. Disconnected. With that being said, I feel like them people are feeding off of me going back to that time. It's a couple of them. And the reason being is because, I saw the guy who I heard in the spirit plane. I think his name is Montez or Montevidez. I've seen an entity attachment of him, just like I saw with this Maria Blanco and stuff stealing from me in the spirit plane. Attached, connected to that timeline, I believe I heard that guy in the spirit plane raped an 11-year-old girl. It's so much I want to talk about ad nauseum, and there was a lot more I wanted to talk about too, and I totally fucking forgot. But with that being said, it's a lot, and I heard supposedly. Well, anyways, with that being said, it's a lot to deal with. It's a lot to contend with. But I'm trying to physically put myself back up together. I saw on the spirit plane that Santa Muerte. Like I said before, shit's all exposed in there. Baron Samedi is part of my bloodline. And I saw that she disemboweled him to take his powers. Her and this Maria Blanco or Tavares with an AS or EZ. That's why I want, there's a way to petition God to be able to extricate her from the spirit plane. I spoke about it. I wanted to mention too, after May the 1st, 2024, I saw that my timelines were like squiggly timelines and all of that. With that being said, it's a lot of weird shit that's going on. A lot. But I'm trying to get better. I'm feeling a little bit better. There had a gentleman that sent me an email that was, I felt concerned about my mental health, and I can understand. Looking at everything on the face of it, I look like shit. I'll admit I've smelled weird phantom smells where, from what I understand, it's due to this Maria Blanco fucking with me. I smell like shit. It's just trying to hold on to what I have, what I'm supposed to have as much as I can. It may seem like my sanity is gone, and in this situation, I'm going to say this right now, that shit is mad and germane. And I want to thank everybody for their prayers and all of that. Like I said, I'm trying my best to get better and make sure I got my real spirit team. It ain't, fucking enemies making themselves. Original timeline, my higher to higher selves and all of that commandeering control. I also saw that with Santa Muerte. Like I say, I ain't of that culture. Baron Samedi is. That's who covers, in a way, along with my higher to higher selves. With that being said, I was getting put together last night. Had a lot of help from different spirits to make sure I stay together and don't get fucked up. So with that being said, I want to mention something too. I did something a couple of days ago, in which I heard that Santa Muerte was going to block me from being able to get my shit back merely because I played 125 hertz, which, freed a lot of people from a spirit plane. I remember, freeing Selena. There were a lot of black women who saw what happened to her, and in the spirit plane, from what I learned, she has an issue with her people, interestingly. A lot of them do, again, it goes back to their origin. They come from some evil, dark shit, it's to where they're not even allowed, from what I understand, in the spirit plane to be able to swoop them people up, like Baron Samedi or an Aludumare, who I think might have been one of the original Israelites. I got to check more on that. Who is the blueprint for God? From what I understand, there's a timeline that he rules as a demiurge or material realm God, or maybe even higher than that. in which it's just composed of it. It's like with the Berenstain Bears universe that we diverged from in 1988 or 89, the year my baby brother Brian was born, ironically. And it's funny too because he died on in 2012 when there was another ascension shift at the hands of this. I was following him around, making him crazy, trying to make him a sacrifice. And later on, I paid a shaman, German woman, by the name of Sakti, who had a very interesting website, who works interestingly under He-Kate. I don't know if she still do, especially in that timeline. I was looking at old videos yesterday, and that shit's real. It's depressing. It's very depressing to see, you know, the path of everything, you know, the trajectory of everything. He is no longer, what do I want to say? I paid her to rescue him from this spirit plane. I mean, not from the spirit plane, but from a hell realm. With that being said, I had to remember because, again, my consciousness is all fucked up. Got to get my shit back from Santa Muerte and all of that. 17, 14, 17, 15 hertz. But she was upset when I played 125 hertz. But with that being said, from what I understand, Aludumare rules a utopia where everybody of all races, I don't care if you were created by Yakub and all of that, and that actually is true. I'm a MAGA hat wearer, so I'm not an Afrocentrist when I say that. I saw spiritually that it's true. With that being said, he rules a very peaceful society that's very modern like us, but it's peaceful and it's only composed like that Berenstain Bears timeline we diverged from, 35,000 people. I even wrote about what I saw with a shaman and all of that back through my third eye when it was working. It wasn't getting fucked with like. With that being said, you know, from what I understand, Selena has a lot of disdain for her people, quote unquote people, because they weren't trying to rescue her. Whereas when she would reach out to black people, you know, they were like, I saw she was stuck in Santa Muerte's hell realm. And her hell realm consists of a skull that it's composed of the primordial darkness, which is what, you know, the Mexicans and South Americans were composed of, you know, due to Quetzalcoatl and their reptilian as well as evil spirit creators. From what I understand, I used to think that these were merely evil spirits. You know, turns out their distorted war faces and all of that, which, you know, like with me, comes from people being stuck with hell realms. They look the way they do because they were actually, in fact, entity attachments. That's why they look all squished up and everything, all, you know, composed, where they're smushed together. They're actually entity attachments that were created by Satan, who, like with Zenu, is one of the rulers of the primordial darkness. And it wasn't until our Yoda Baal, who all of that comes from the Egyptian system that was created, from what I understand, to keep us from leaving Earth. I think it may have something to do with we just not ready yet. I also remember Alex Collier, saying that we're the only race on Earth that has all the 26, you know, the 26 DNAs deriving from different alien races, the Andromedans, the Arcturians, woo, 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 la, 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 la. with that being said, from what I understand, the Cometians created the moon, God, with the God industrial complex, as I call it. It's like a bureaucracy. Your connection to God is usually created through your connection to your ancestors and so forth, your family and all that, like with your higher to higher selves, and then it goes all the way up to the top. They're the ones who created the God industrial complex, as we know here on Earth. Using Gnosis, and Gnosis just means to know, and I believe those are what people, may call archons, entity attachments designed to give you knowledge when you first incarnate and when you're downloaded into the program called Earth. There was a guy who met the demiurge named John Lerma who described it exactly as how I'm describing it, as being like a computer plane, whatchamacallit. Like I said on another video, it's like, a lot of these ancient gods are from different realities. The ones of Sumer, Mesopotamia, that came to create us, just like, we create video games and all of that, to put souls, I believe that comes from their group soul consciousness. And there was a blogspot article written by somebody who lived in Minnesota that talked about that. How we came from these... and it's funny too, they mention like black-like entities. Not black-like entities, but entities that look like stick figures, but not really. They were more filled. That I guess come from primordial darkness, which makes a lot of sense given what I know about how everything comes from primordial darkness. The primordial darkness, which I think created the source, is a realm of chaos and all of that. With that being said, created us to act as video games for them to be able to interface with us. I mean, not with us, but to be able to interface. Use us as video, extensions of video game. Well, as video game characters. And I feel like the Cometians did that. But he mentioned how we're kind of like living in, that's why numbers supersede everything. If all else fails, you put zeros in front or at the beginning of something to make it work. With that being said, that's the reason why numbers, like on the computer screen, are the language of the universe. With that being said, God, with skin of bronze, hair of wool, and I don't want to get into how a lot of that was predicated on sacrifices with Jesus Christ, who actually was in fact black. There's a reason why, and he was Greek, but there's a reason why they reference Patmos in the Bible. He's stuck in the roach realm to this day. We live in a reality, well, our timeline is a reality, or especially my original, instituted on sacrifices. And from what I understand after I left, I'm just going to say this, it feels red hot. Like somebody that's supposed to be there is no longer there. And it just feels, no life, dead. That August 22nd, 2022 timeline I keep proselytizing about. But it took our God to give them light. So with that being said, let me go ahead and do the cards. Get this shit out the way. Hopefully I can get better. I've been playing frequency to get this shit off and just not being stuck in my mind. But it's a dangerous situation to be in. Get some, get like something better for this to sit on, like an altar cloth or something. Something I could fuck with. So in the present position, we got the Lovers. And it's funny, I kept seeing the Lovers as the outcome all last week. I feel that you're moving towards hopefully an outcome, an outcome where great things are going to come to you and arrive to you. But you have to be willing to be open to it and use common sense when dealing with it. Present position, we got the Eight of Pentacles. And I feel that you're stuck in a position where you're learning about a situation. You're taking the time out to be calculating about a situation. But you see with the situation, you're going to have to be very, very prudent. Can't be spurious. Page of Pentacles is the future position. I see you getting a lot of help. I see people looking out for you. I see a lot of light coming your way. Ace of Wands. I see people that's in the subconscious position. I see and have a feeling that something that's supposed to be, that's coming, is going to make a way for you. And for the goals position, you desire that to very nefarious, egregious, anemic position. All the fucking big words like the niggas in fucking high school would say. Advice card, Nine of Swords. Something is telling you to take liberty with a situation. Throw caution to the wind. But take calculated risk, but be mad careful. Six of Pentacles. I see a lot of people trying to help you out. And I also see motherfuckers trying to block it for their own selfish interests. With that being said, fears in your hopes card, Queen of Swords. I see motherfuckers trying to come at you and trying to pull you down. And I see the sun as the outcome. But make sure, just like the real sun I used to have, it's the real sun. The black sun, which is black. It's called black because all colors come forth from black, you know. Like in that film Legend states, where the devil states, everything comes from the darkness. And that's ironic knowing what I know during this curse. You know, the black sun functions above a certain light spectrum. And with that being said, you know, I heard some spirits actually say when they saw, you know, the very, very lightened pictures, that's exactly how the spirit or astral plane looks. So we were living back then in the duality of two realities, and we were, you know, advancing. It's kind of like comment I left on my Instagram about Donald Trump. That's not the Donald Trump I remember. He was, you know, he came off as a buffoon and appealed to the most, you know, I don't want to say upset. You know, I'm going to say this right now. The people in this timeline are just some of the most one-dimensional. Even the most so-called narrow-minded person would have nuances in their thinking. Here, it seems different. Very, very, very different. You know, I saw something early this morning that I hearkened to it. That I'm not in my reality. Something about Agua Caliente is Mexico and it looked just like America. With that being said, what I want to say. You know, it's kind of like the thing with Madonna's nose. He catered to those who were just very, very upset with the system and were just totally disgusted by it, with Pizzagate and everything. And he appealed to those people strategically so that he can ultimately get in office and bring about, you know, us back to the gold standard and bring us all on the same frequency and vibration, which is where we need to be before we start having open borders. I don't want to say you got to eliminate the differences, but you got to have people on the same way, not same way of thinking, but on a certain energy level. And we were accomplishing that in my old timeline. He wanted to avert, and I saw this coming as well years ago. It's the reason why Eminem got taken out. He saw that they would cause either world war or major series of cataclysms. I actually had a dream about it, and I spoke about it when I lived on the PCH. That would cause so much upheaval that it would eliminate a lot of the population. And people used to, in my old timeline, I don't see it as much online anymore, talk about a future event that would wipe out, you know, most of the population, and how the Denver airport correlated to it, you know, how they want to get rid of a lot of the population and bring it down to a certain, you know, controllable level so that they can bring people underground. And this is what Eminem wanted to talk about. They wanted to, you know, kill off a lot of people, do what aliens do, put us, you know, in clone bodies and have us act as slaves underground, where they live in their own civilization alongside with Agartha, Mu, Egyptian civilizations. Adolf Hitler got his new Schwabia down there. He was really, really big into the occult. You know, I read somewhere that he was fucking up Freemason places, and I remember in my old timeline that nigga was big on the occult. I got nothing but respect for him. Supposed to be one of my ancestors through Harriet Tubman. I learned during this. I don't know how true that shit is. But with that being said, they were going to live alongside under the black sun, which is exactly what I'm going to show you at the end, what I've been showing you in my videos ad nauseum. Get my shit fucking dirty ass floor. I don't want to do a pain today. Woo. You know, y'all remember Fat Smoker, by the way? He got stuck in the roach realm. He died in the old timeline. With Fat Smoker, you know, 125 hertz, 1185 hertz gets people out of hell realms. You know, I'm just thinking about how fucked up that was when I listened to that woman's video about how she was stuck in the hell realm, Selena. And she was stuck in muck. I almost got caught into that one night. And that got blocked. And, with that being said, you know, 125 hertz, 1185 hertz transmutes. The 125 hertz pulls your ass out of hell realms. 156 hertz spirit jars. 60 hertz brings positive energy. Raises your vibration. Heard something about if you combine 960 hertz with 853 hertz, a portal happens or something. I got to test that out with these two mirrors facing each other, and I shouldn't be doing that. I fucked up my body. With that being said, if you want a more personalized reading, please contact me at readingbyterror22@yahoo.com. Peace. Have a nice day.